And we are live. What's good? What's good? It's your man DL Saint. Welcome to the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast. Happy Thursday, y'all. It's almost Friday. Almost to the weekend. I hope all is well for everyone out there. Y'all know what time it is, man. I'm just going to pull up my phone real quick and make sure that the levels are good. I'm excited about today's show, y'all. This is going to be a good one. This is going to be a real good one. I met a brother on Melanie King's show. And Melanie actually brought the brother up when she brought me up. Let's kind of like to continue a conversation. Like I was complimenting the brother. I didn't know him, and she brought him up, and we had the three of us had a conversation. It was fire, and I was lucky enough to be able to keep in touch with the brother. He became a big time supporter on my platform, so I'm always grateful for that. You know what I mean? I gotta give him a hand for that. You know what I mean? And so yeah, our audios are good. So found out the brother is a teacher, and right away I'm like, bro, you got to come on. You got to come on, because in my opinion, it's just DL Saint talking, teachers should be some of the highest paid people in America. It doesn't make sense that, folks out here playing sports or doing some sort of athletics or doing whatever they're doing and making way more money than teach. It doesn't make any sense. Teachers are entrusted with our future. They raise the children, basically. I mean, they educate our children. They make sure that their values are intact. They prepare them for the world. And yet, we all know that teachers don't get paid, man. So if it were up to me, teachers and law enforcement would be two of the highest paid in jobs, two of the highest paid careers in America. And we really should do something about that. So I'm going to bring up stats. Well, some stats that I found here. You know what I mean? I was just looking at, here is data about men teachers, the percentage of men teachers by year in the United States, data about male teachers by state is also on here, but we weren't going to get into all that. I just wanted to, it shows the percentage of men teachers in 2020, right? So you look at, in childcare, it has like teacher assistants, and it goes down to preschool, kindergarten, elementary, and middle school, and then secondary schools, right? So we'll jump to preschool and kindergarten. Out of 535,000 total employees, 1.2% are men. 1.2%. 12% are African-American men and women. And then Asian men and women is 2.2%. Latino men and women, 15.3%. When you get into elementary school, 3,371,000 employed, teachers. 20.4% are men. And then African-American men and women make up 10.5%. Asian men and women, 2.8%, and Latino men and women, 10.5%. And then secondary schools, it's 963,000 employed, 41.2% are men, less than half are men, 7.7% African-American men and women. Asian men and women are 3%, and Latino men and women, 8.9%. So we look at these numbers, like the big thing to me is the shortage of men. And I think that we can all agree that we need leadership in this country, and we need it at all levels, but we especially need it in schools. When you look at the preschool, kindergarten, elementary, and middle, definitely need men there. I can remember when I was in school, we had men there. I remember my gym teachers to this day. You know what I mean? I remember all of the men who were involved in the school system all the way up to this day. So, yeah, I was just so, with that in mind, I was like, yo, we got the perfect brother to jump on the show. You know what I mean? So without further ado, put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus Christ. Oops, wrong button. Put your hands together. Ladies and gentlemen, Brother Roz is in the house. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. Peace to all. Thanks for having me. I always like to say, when I meet people who I think are really decent. And I don't know, my spidey sense tingled in a positive way. I said, I always like to pay it forward. I never need anything back. I remember people used to do that for me. And some of the topics on your shows really caught my attention, especially about Mr. The General. I already forgot his name. See, that's how bad things are, where very
Benjamin
little
O.
black
Davis.
men. Thank you. And I should remember that because of that clothing wear, Ben Davis. But I remember. But in any case, yeah, when you have program like that, that was the first program I saw after I met you, and I said, "Oh, this guy just likes to talk about all kinds of topic." And so I say, "Yeah." When you asked me, I said, "Of course, yes, I would love to talk about it."
I
Black men and
appreciate that, man.
teaching in general, for sure.
I appreciate that, man. And I know who you are, but could you take a moment and tell everyone else who you are? You know what I mean? I told our origin story, but I don't know your origin story. So if you take a moment, just let everybody know who you are, bro.
Yeah, I was born in the Bronx, New York, 1970. I went to high school in Brooklyn, a really real good specialized high school. So I used to travel about an hour and a half on the subway. I went to college. I played a little bit of football. I studied mechanical engineering and math. The math that I was concentrating on was financial calculus. I will not lie. I was going to sell my soul to the devil and make a lot of money. And then I studied abroad my third year in college. And that just changed my whole outlook of chasing that paper like that. And I actually worked as an engineer for a little bit over a year. I wasn't really feeling it. I felt like it was like chain gang kind of work. You do the same thing over and over. In any case, after I took a while to graduate from college, money wise was really difficult for me. And finally in 2000, just to let you know, I graduated at 30. A job opportunity happened for me in Japan. I had no interest in Japanese studies or anything like that. So their government hired me, and I had to do liaison work. They're basically trying to institute English as a second language, and I basically worked with English teachers from that education department, and I did seminars on U.S. American, customs, anything to try to get their students to study abroad in America and other English-speaking countries. So when I came back, it was right after 9/11. Then the bubble hit. Jobs were really scarce. Education was not even on my mind as far as a profession. And one of my buddies who was studying to become a lawyer, he became a teacher as well. And he said, "Hey, man, we need more black men. You also speak Spanish. You're in New York City. And hey, give it a shot." Now, I went to a really good high school, and I forgot, kids are no joke. In general, when you're in a good high school, you don't have that much discipline. You don't see discipline problems. The kind of high schools I first taught at, oh man. So in any case, yeah, I don't know. I always liked math. I saw it like a puzzle, like just doing regular jigsaw puzzles when you were a little kid. And I guess that was just something that was innate in me, And don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna lie to you. Whenever you learn how to subtract triple digit numbers and you gotta borrow, this dude right here, I used to struggle.
Word.
Hard. I must have been daydreaming that day when she taught it, my teacher. And my dad was getting on me. My father's real tough, saying stuff, "You must be stupid." And I started crying. And my uncle so happened to be there that day. And he was my father's older brother. He said, "Get out of here. You don't speak to kids like that." He taught me something in 5 seconds. And from that day on, my math ability went up. In any case, when I decided to become a teacher, I said, man, for some strange reason, I still remember this. And I just had to learn the pedagogy. I just had to learn how to give it to kids. I had to try to learn. Imagine, math is not a topic that, let's keep it real, people don't like it. I think the number one reason a lot of the teachers don't reach out to their students, and I mean reach out, is create a rapport. And you saw the stats yourself. Very little look like me. So you imagine the inner city, like where I come from. And unfortunate, race relations are real, even for young people. So imagine a kid who doesn't want to even be in school and somebody doesn't look like him or her.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I don't have a hard time, because I had a hard time. I went the first school I taught, I was an all girls Catholic school in middle Manhattan, predominantly Black and Latinos, and a lot of Italian girls. And that was different for me because it's just all girls and that energy of just girls. And me not having an experience, when I would talk to them, it was like, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this. Hey, and I had no experience. I lost a lot of their interest in learning. And then the pay was really low in Catholic schools. And after 2 years, I was able to apply to public school, which is a little bit better. And I was in a school right here in the Bronx. It was only a mile away. So I was kind of happy. And all of a sudden, the first day of school, I saw the metal detectors and I said, what the F is this? And it was straight like that movie. I'm not exaggerating. The Lean on Me movie.
Yeah, Lean on Me.
With what was his name? He's like, call me Batman. And he walked around with a stick. Yeah. And yeah, I was hearing things. Since this is internet, I don't mind saying it. Guys were saying F you to the teachers and suck my dick. Even girls were saying that to us. Wow. That was the first time I ever heard a girl say that. Young women in high school. And now I'm a very chill brother. I would never blow up. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So I quit teaching after my 3rd year. The turnover rate in New York City is average of 3 years. But my file was still around. And a lot of people assume because you're from the city that you can put up with that kind of stuff. My parents didn't raise me like that. You know what I mean? So when I'm hearing kids say that, I said, I'm out of here. In any case, a woman went on maternity leave in the suburbs. So my records were on file. I took the long drive. It's 35 miles. And I said, oh, I definitely don't want this job. I did the interview. Somehow they liked me. I did my demo lesson. And I've been there since 2008, just to show you. And I've been teaching. I've taught from pre-honors, what do you call it? Pre-calculus, geometry, algebra, 8th grade honors. You know, I enjoy the job as far as being with the young people. The other intangibles that we might get a chance to speak about, oh man, it's really tough, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely.
And imagine those 2 years of the pandemic, what I went through. All this came out in 2 years.
Yeah, man. I mean, that was a whole. You will definitely get to that. Brother Hayaka's in the house. What's good? And I believe Brother Hayaka's another math guy. And he was like, "Hey, brothers, and you know we're on at 6:30, so a lot of people are leaving work, and there's a lot of transition time. So give people a little bit of time; they'll jump in. Plus the replay. I'm sure everybody's gonna watch this. I told my cousin about this topic. He was like, "Yo, that's fire," because this is on everyone's subconscious, if not their conscious mind, because we know this situation and no one's doing anything about it. And, you know, I'm talking about the lack of men, especially the lack of men in color in education. But Brother Hayek also says the other thing is they don't teach math as a language, which the high level of math is really a language.
I want to jump in. The stat about the percentages, I was going to do my whole district, but I got too busy today. So I only got up to 8th grade as far as men teacher. Mm-hmm. So in 6th grade, the middle school at my district, there's 2 out of 16 men. Now I'm saying in the core subjects. I didn't do all like the special ed. Core subjects, in case anybody's not aware, are math, English. They call it ELA, English Language Arts, science, and social studies / history. So I needed the stats on the 4 major subjects, right? In 6th grade, 2 out of 16 are men teachers in my district at that middle school. In 7th grade is a little bit more, 11 out of 20. And in 8th grade, 8 out of 20. The total out of the 3 grade levels, 56 total teachers, 21 are men, 37.5% out of the 56 are men in that school. It's not a huge number. And that is a recent, years ago, it was even lower. And then I know, unfortunately, we live in a race society. Somebody's thinking, and so I'm going to tell you, ask me how many black men are in that middle school.
Oh, I was going to ask you. You didn't have the problem. I was going to ask you, how many? One. How many? How many?
I'm going to go back to the high school.
So, and we're talking about black men, but with Latino men, or would that include black and brown? Or
You know why I don't include them? Because they don't consider themselves black. I know some of them. There's
that's
one
true.
Puerto
I mean,
Rican brother. There's one Puerto Rican brother. I think he's, if you know Puerto Ricans, they're very proud about being Puerto Rican, and they kind of. I'm not saying they don't. I don't want to turn this into a different topic, but it's not that they don't know about their African ancestry, but they're really deep into their Puerto Rican ancestry, regardless of the black-white stuff.
Right.
So, and there's some other Latino women, but they're more on the like white side of like, I don't know how else to explain it. Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I know what you're saying.
Spanish. They know no Spanish. They
wow.
probably couldn't tell you anything about the country they're from. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But I mean, and that's something like, you hear people always talking about representation and how important this stuff is. But when it comes to education, I really don't hear or read too much on it. In fact, the stats that I pulled, the story was from 2020, but the stats were older. It took me like 10 minutes to find some fairly current stats, and it wasn't like, a government report or anything like that. They had to go to some different, .org kind of organizations to get these stats. It's just we're not there talking about it. We're not, but we always hear about we need more women in STEM. We need more women engineers. We need more female this, more female that. But we're not hearing any incentives for getting more men into education. Or are there any active pushes to recruit more men of all races into teaching?
I wouldn't say this. They don't do gender specific. They're trying to recruit more minorities, if anything, especially not in New York City. New York City, I don't think they have an issue too big with minority teachers. When you're in the suburbs, like in a district like mine where you get paid more, not so much more. I'm gonna be honest with you, like living in New York, it's hard to buy a house, but me working in the suburbs, I was able to now afford a house. Let me just leave it at that.
That's what's up. And we know about New York and LA when it comes to the housing crunch, when it comes to just cost of living. LA is bad. New York is even worse. You know what I mean? And you get in places like San Francisco, Seattle, even Boise, Idaho now for some crazy reason. But I understand that part. And it's good that at least it's good to have money.
How you started off? You said we should get paid more in general. Well, ask me how many men want to get paid that kind of money to bust their ass, even though it's only for 10 months. I can't explain to you. And I know a lot of people like, oh my God, but you're only working and you get this off and you get the 2 months off and you get a week of Thanksgiving or whatever, of Christmas. Man, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've done construction work before I became a teacher, just to pay bills while I was doing college. Okay, you might be physically tired, and you worked in the military. You were in the military. You know what I'm about to say when I say this. When your brain is tired, there is nothing, because that's what they train you, right? To get your mind tough. When your brain is tired, oh boy, oh boy. And the joke about teachers drinking a lot, it's true. That's a true fact.
I absolutely believe that, man, because here's the thing in the Army, especially, but like air traffic control, I'm a retired air traffic controller. I remember I had a girlfriend for a little bit, here and there during my career, my 20 plus and some change career. She wanted to, she was like, I want, teaching herself how to play chess. She wanted to get into chess. All right, cool. I would come home from work as an air traffic controller, working one of the busiest airports in the world. I would come home and she would want to play chess. It's like, no, I've been playing 3D chess for the past 10 hours. My brain is spent. And you want me to come home and play chess with you? No, I want to sit here and look at the wall. That's all I want to do for the next hour so I can, rest my mind. And she couldn't understand that. She got so mad. It was like, I am mentally spent. I'd rather be physically spent than mentally spent. You know what I mean? Because that's crazy.
And I wanted to do, I came in here half prepared, but I can't tell the exact numbers. I bet prior to World War I or just right after, men were probably more in the classroom.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we saw that in the 80s, bro.
Correct. Even when I was in school, I remember I don't remember having that many women teachers in high school. For real. I remember. I can't. I can't. I'm serious. I had very little at my high school. Like I said, my high school was a engineering technical high school, and you imagine in the '80s, women weren't. This whole STEM thing wasn't really being pushed. So a lot
Right.
of my teachers were men teachers, and the first high school I went to was also the same case. Now I don't know where that shift happened. I really would have to think that that pay scale, and now all of a sudden men are trying to have families. That teacher stuff doesn't cut it a lot.
Nah, it doesn't, man. I remember when I was in high school, just regular high school. But within our high school, there was a separate high school. There was like the Cincinnati Academy of Math and Science. You had to test into this school, but it was part of our school, which was just a neighborhood school, like the hood school. So we had quite a few female teachers, but just making up numbers, I would say it was maybe 60-40, something like that, female to male. But there were a lot of male teachers and a lot of male administrators. So there was, every time you turned the corner, there was a man there. So we had plenty of representation on both sides. Brother Hayoka was saying that was Morgan Freeman. Yes, it was Morgan Freeman, the actor who played the role. He was playing Crazy Joe. They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
There you go. Yeah,
Joe Clark. There it is, right there. And and Brother Hayoka was saying the more affluent schools have a better pick of teachers and programs. Yes, because they probably got a better tax base. They probably have more money to play with, so they can offer more money and attract the best talent. I mean, that's that component of capitalism that we still have in our school system, which is kind of weird. And Miss AKA ladies in the house, what's good, love? Welcome. And she's just showing love to everybody. You know what I mean? So let's get into it, bro. So, in your opinion, man, why is teaching so difficult these days?
Okay. Now, first, I'm gonna give you my opinion, and maybe it might be a general thing. There's things coming at us at so many angles, and what I mean by that, let's go from the bottom to the top. The kid angle, the student angle, the parent angle, the PTA angle, administrator angle, your co-worker angles, and especially like, let's say I'm a math teacher. If let's say your district wants all the math teachers teaching the same topic or unit within that week, and then it's like, hey, but let's do this and let's do that. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I find that kind of teaching boring. I have air quote rebelled against it in a sense. If me and you are teachers and there's 6 homework problems, they want us to, well, not the district, my team members, like all of us should give the same homework questions and teach the same homework. The same questions in class. I'm like, no, you don't know the makeup of my class. What if I have 15 kids who can't deal with those kinds of problems right off the bat? I got to start off a little slow. So that's what makes that a little bit difficult.
So let me stop you right there for a moment. So the district mandates, and is that a good word to use, mandate, or do they encourage? Do the district mandate certain things?
It's encouraged. By union law, they cannot you have full autonomy of how you want to teach your course.
And I love the union. You know what I mean? National Traffic Controllers Association, baby, NACA, AFL-CIO. So,
for example, I'm a new teacher, and I got hired at the middle school or the high school. And even though I have remember, you have to get tenure to stay there. You know the whole tenure thing.
And that's 10 years? 3 years.
And that college might be longer, but in my district, it takes 3 years. And
Okay.
all of a sudden, you start to rock the boat. Like, well, I don't want to teach 2-step equations first. I want to teach exponent powers. And then all of a sudden, you might be gone after that first year. Oh, well, there goes your teacher. Yeah.
So the district encourages us. We want this. This is coming from above. And now you're saying your team, like, so at every different school, the teams within
I'm not going to say all schools, just mine. Because
but in theory,
I got you.
Yeah, in theory. So in theory, once that filters down, now the individual teachers they get together and they have to agree on what they're going to do. Because I'm more with you. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm more with you. Like, listen, I understand the directive. I know where we're going, but you guys aren't in here with my kids. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna get us there. I'm gonna accomplish this mission, but I can't accomplish it the same way you're accomplishing it over there, Billy, because you got the college prep kids over there. They're like math scholars. You know what I mean? So you got to deal with that.
Compromise. I stay within the unit, but I'm not going to teach the same 10 questions you're teaching. I don't think that's not necessary. It's not like English where if we read a book, everybody's reading that book. Math, there's infinite problems. Why do I have to choose the same problem? And so you imagine if you're a new teacher and you come like that,
it was this guy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What are you doing? Just go with the flow.
If you're secure and you really know your business, which that's how I approached it. I was like, you guys can't touch me in math. I didn't say that to them, but I can just tell. So you guys can't touch me in math. And I said, you know what? My first year, I didn't do anything different. The second year, after I realized I feel like a robot. No way. I'll stay within the unit. I'll even give the test on the same days that everybody else does, because that's what they do. Like, hey, try to give the test on the same day because maybe your daughter and my son are in that same 8th grade or 9th grade, and they can study together even though they're in the same class, which is kind of cool. That aspect, I'm all with that. But yeah, that's just my school. Other schools might be different, and other schools might be even more strict. Who knows?
Or less. So there's a lot of autonomy within the schools, with the teachers within the schools. So once the mission comes down, now the teachers are free to get there. Like, all right, this is the mission. We can accomplish the mission anywhere we want. That's a little bit like the military in the sense that it's not robotic. Like, the generals aren't going to tell you exactly how to accomplish your mission. They're just going to disseminate the mission. Mm-hmm. And then the officers and the soldiers involved, all right, we know what we got to do. We know what we need. We got our support. Let's get it done. Mm-hmm. That's crazy because I never thought about that. So that's that aspect of it. So you got that. And then you were saying you also got to deal with the parents.
Which I don't have control over that. So I try to the one that I have control over are the students. So now I want to dig about why that's difficult. They're not all made the same way, man. They're not all raised the same way. Education may not be a big proponent in that family. They just need somebody to take care of their kid and pass. So now you imagine, even if I'm the funniest kind of teacher, which I'm not really a humorous teacher, I try to be, but what if some kids may not like the funny teacher? You might have that kid who just wants you to show all the steps. Why are you telling jokes? You have kids who have you might have heard of this, and maybe our other guests on here who have kids in school, if they have an IEP, these are special ed kids who may have learning disability or physical disabilities. And anybody doesn't know what IEP means, it means individualized educational plan. So and now if everybody has the equal, this is when they had that thing, what was it, No Child Left Behind. It's not called that anymore. So you can have, before it would just be special ed class, and all the kids who were in special ed only saw special ed other students. Now they get pushed in. So you imagine it's straight up like a bell curve. You got that middle group who, hey man, I just want to get by this. I'll take my 80s. I'm happy. At the end of the other bell curve, you got the high achievers, which is maybe like 1-2%. And then everybody on the other tail end of the bell curve. That's the hard part. So now you imagine you have to try to figure out, how am I going to push this lesson with all these different types of learning styles some of these kids may have? And you won't know that until, I just finished my 10th day of school. I started on the 1st. I already gave one test. Very simple, solve an equation test. Why did I make it simple? Let me see what I have to work with. In the past, my colleagues wanted to give where the equations start getting with parentheses and distribution and combining like terms right off the jump. And the numbers were low on the first test. So the pandemic was kind of helpful in the sense that after those 2 years, when we went back live last year for good, we knew the kids were going to be deficient. And so somebody suggested, hey, why don't we start off really slow? Because we always have so much time left at the end of the school year. And I don't know if they did it this year, but I did. I said, I'm staying slow again. One, the kids just came off summer break. You have a daughter, you say, you already know. Even if she's a good student, your mind is mush. You know? And I don't know how many parents make these kids read and do like 15 minutes of math at least 3 times a day, 3 times a week during the summer. You get what I mean? So it's there's a lot of intangibles that make this job difficult. I don't find the teaching aspect difficult. When I get kids who are not motivated, they don't want to do any schoolwork. Hey man, I teach it just like any other business out there. I just make sure I cross my T's and dot my I's. If they have an IEP and I got to give them like handouts and graphic organizer, I handle all that. So if that kid fails, they're not saying, hey, but did you do this? Did you do that? Did you? And then now that all my lesson plans are on Google Classroom, it's proof. And I give it to even the kids who don't have IEP. Everybody gets everything. That's how I cover myself.
That's what's up. And the fact that you got to cover yourself is crazy. You know what I mean? So, Brother Helke was like, yeah, top down cookie cutter approach. That was about earlier when we were talking about how they disseminate what they want from above down. Brother Michael's in the house. What's good, bro? Good to see you. And Brother Michael was, excited. We're at 1.1, 1,100 subscribers. Yes, we are. We are growing. Our views are definitely getting up, and I want to say that's thanks to my supporters like Brother Michael, Miss AKA Lady, Hayoka, yourself, Brother Roz. We're out there, we're making it happen. Miss AKA Lady, I am always supportive of my kids' teachers. I want them to know I'm present and aware. Plus, my kids know their parents and teachers are on the same team. Google Classroom has been great.
And Miss AKA Lady, we love parents like you. And parents who understand. For example, I have new students this year. How much do you think I know about them? 0. I don't know anything about them. But guess who does know about them? Mom and dad. Hey, why don't you drop me an email? We had back to school night last night, DL. And out of my classes, I say I average 10 parents. And I have in each class at least 20 to 26.
20 to 26 by yourself. You have a teacher's assistant or just you?
No. I don't teach. I don't have special ed kids who need a co-teacher. No.
All right. So that sounds like a lot. Like 26 kids.
I have 26 kids, and I'm only about an average of 10 parents per class came to this back to school night.
I mean, now I know people got to work.
Yes, I understand that reasoning. All right. So you know what? At least drop me an email. It doesn't say this is now, but if their kid is failing, hey,
Johnny on the spot.
And now wait a minute. In our district, we've always had we call it it's like Teacher Access Center. We put all their stuff in there. Parents have access to it on a daily basis. They don't have to wait for a report card to know that their child is not doing well, that their child hasn't turned in 4 assignments in a row or whatever the case may be. But of course, this is not all parents. I don't want to. All these horror stories that you might hear, it's a small percentage. But that small percentage totally outweighs all the great stuff that I go through on a yearly basis for my students. You know what I mean?
Man, that's crazy, man. But it's true. I see it all the time. I 100% support my teachers. We were talking about IEPs. My daughter's on an IEP. You know what I mean? And I can remember the only time I got frustrated with the school system. This was when we were in LA. Is when I realized they were simply pushing my daughter along. They were just pushing her along. They didn't want her really to learn. It's just like whatever. She was labeled. She was that kid. But my daughter was a very well-disciplined child. She doesn't cause any problems. So the teachers overlooked her. They just simply overlooked her. And they would say, oh, it's a language barrier. She's a Spanish speaker. My daughter doesn't speak Spanish. Her mom does. My daughter doesn't speak Spanish. So they were teaching her in Spanish, and it only got worse. You're teaching her in Spanish. She doesn't speak the language. So we got out of there. And this was not a slight on the teachers. We had to get really involved. They were dealing with my daughter's mom initially, and then I came in, and then they realized the mistake. But one of the biggest things I had with the system, in any system, once someone is labeled, my child was labeled a Spanish speaker. We couldn't change the paperwork. She had to test out of that part of the system, which meant she had to take the test in Spanish. So like you mean to tell me I have to teach my daughter who's already struggling to learn, I got to make sure she learns this in Spanish and then have her test out so she can get the help she needs in English? And they were like, yes, we're afraid that's the case. We're so sorry. There's nothing we can do about it. Oh, something I could do about it. We left. We moved to Florida. And all that stuff went away. You know what I mean? But the teachers were right there doing everything they could. They really were. It's just the system out there just had them in a straitjacket. Have you dealt with anything like that like in your world?
Well, not directly, but I know in my school that does happen too. If somebody's labeled a certain way, it's not just, okay, we can take you out. It's a paper trail, of, you got to understand the district's viewpoint as well. They can get sued.
Yes.
If paperwork is not done correctly. You were talking about getting pushed, like your daughter, you felt like she was getting pushed. And that happens even to the general population of students, because unfortunately, and I'm not saying this is my district, or maybe I am, whatever the case may be, percentages matter when people are passing. And I shared that New York State Regents thing, and when we get to it, I'm gonna explain the chart to people that, okay, oh yeah, they're passing, but wait till you see that chart.
I saw that chart, blew my mind. I'm like, man, he got to explain this to me. This don't make sense. Miss AKA lady is wondering what grade and subject do you teach? I think she missed the first part. You jumped in late. And Brother Jose is in the house. What's good, Brother Jose? Says I'm the GOAT. Nah, bro, you the GOAT. He also says Roz not lying. Absolutely. Everyone is aware of the situation. But yeah, if it's possible, Miss AKA lady was just wondering what subject.
I teach math, and I'm licensed between 7 and 12. I'll be going back to the high school next year. So I teach algebra. And right now I'm teaching 8th graders. I've been with 8th grade. I took one for the team. I didn't want to teach middle school because that age group is, for me, it's just too young. I didn't go into teaching to teach that grade level. And no disrespect, they get the reset in high school. And a lot of these kids who are not even decent achievers, they know this.
Yes, they do.
They're not putting that much effort. And I want to also share, I used to work in the city, so the demographics look more like me and Spanish-speaking people. I'm now in a suburb where the demographics have flipped bingo, like massively. A lot of white students. And I just want to let everybody know, I sometimes wonder why maybe they don't want to hire us there. And this is my joke with my white colleagues. I say, I just don't want us to know that y'all shit is dirty too. And they laugh because they're going through it.
They see it.
It's not like they're happy that white kids are getting over. They're just, because an educator who's into this, look, man, we know everybody's not going to be a 95 student. And I hate cliches, but bottom line is, man, you give your full effort, man, you will be all right. You will be all right.
I tell my daughter all the time, I will never get mad at you when you put forth effort. If you give 100% and you get a D-, I am not mad at you. You might not be good at algebra or whatever that might be, but you gave 100%. But if you half-ass it and bring back an A, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy because you have to put in the work. Miss AKA lady is saying, you can't wait to the end of the year to meet the teacher. Parents have to participate in order for it to work right. I believe 100% that is facts, as the young kids are saying, facts. And then there's love. Brother Jose is talking to Miss AKA lady, exactly, especially if you wanted to know what your kids are learning. And it's so easy now. Brother, you remember when we were in there, right? We're going back now because you and I are born the same year. You remember the late 70s and then, into the 80s and then, graduating like early 90 or whatever, late 80s, early 90. You remember what that was like. You know what I mean? We were able to fool. The only tie to our parents really was through the kids, right? Because my mom worked at night. I was home. If you called at night, I knew what time you were going to call. I would be the one picking up the phone. You know what I mean? If you sent home a message, it came home with me. I don't want to went to the mailbox. So if it came from school, I stuck it in my pocket. So the kids, if you were like a bad kid like me, you can just take care of everything. I was forging all kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm signing this, I'm doing that. Can't do that now. It's all real time. Like it's all right there. Kids can't, unless the kid's a hacker, there's nothing they can do to stop that communication.
And now the contact is straight to mom and dad's cell phone. You're not intercepting that.
Nope. Can't intercept that no matter what you do. You know what I mean? And it's in real time. So, and let me ask you this. Do kids today understand accountability?
No.
Wow.
We no. In general, no. I answer that emphatically. You ask my teachers at my school, and I doubt you can get 10% to say yes. Because if they do say yes, they're just thinking about the great students. We're living in an enabled society. I also like to call it the microwave society. Give me right now. Nobody wants to turn on the stove and preheat it. They want the food right now. And these young people want whatever they want right now.
Yep.
There's no,
yep.
I mean, today I'm in the hallway in between. I had my free period, and the kids are lining up on the wall to go get their food. And one boy just kicked the snot out of his friend. They were playing, don't get me wrong. So all I told the youngster, I said, hey, what are you doing? You know what? Stand over here by me. But what did I do? That's the kind of response you get. That's the easiest level for me to give you an understanding of, look, all I'm having is a conversation with you to understand you can't just kick your friend because you always do this. There will be accountability sooner or later. And when I say, and he was my student, so that's why I was speaking to him. He had no respect for me. He was like, you're annoying me. And now this ain't the 70s anymore either.
Can't give him that paddle.
Not even the paddle. You can't even say, young man, you better watch your tone. If you raise your voice, and just like I did right now, he can go and tell his parents, he yelled at me. It's going to be your word against his. And they have this law, and you might be familiar with it, and the parents here as well, because this is a nationwide law called DASA. It's the anti-bullying. And that also has to do with teachers talking to, and it happened to me when you're a mother had a really special ed kid, and she lied and said that I went in front of the classroom and said, and this kid here doesn't even know how to. Thankfully, they interviewed about half my class, and they were like, Sankofa doesn't talk like that to anybody. What are you talking about? He's like mad fun. We have dance competition on Fridays in the last 10 minutes of the day. I just try to, anybody who's a teacher on here, you must break the monotony one way or another, or else, look, the attention span of an adult is what, some weird number like 10 minutes or even less.
Hell no, not with TikTok, bro. It's in seconds now. Now with TikTok, ain't nobody got no attention span, bro.
So you imagine an adolescent who's going through physiological and mental growth.
Which is why we need you there.
Yeah.
Man, you got me thinking now, man. This is why we need to have this conversation, because grown-ups don't realize that's detrimental to your child and to society. If a grown-up can't raise their voice, I'm thinking, you heard where I went with it, paddle. Man, pull the paddle out, man, pull the ruler out, hold your hand out. We knew when we messed up. We knew when you got me. We were accountable. So I'm about to do, it's going to be a paddle or the little ruler, or it's going to be a detention. I'd rather get the paddle than get the detention. You know what I mean? So that's not a thing anymore. And this is going to destroy our society. This is why our society is crumbling before our eyes in real time. Miss A lady wants to know who initially labeled her Spanish speaker and how did it even happen like that. And she's talking about my daughter. It's the paperwork that they send home with the kids in California. If you mark on there that another language is spoke in the home, then that's it. That child is a language, that foreign language is a second language. English is a second language as far as they're concerned. And they get more money for it. You see, they're looking for it. Even though your child, let's say, mom and dad are Armenian. They speak Armenian, but the child only speaks English. Born in America, has only ever spoke English. They go like, nah, that's a foreign speaker, because they want to get that check so they can get extra money
Exactly.
from the state and from the feds. So it's not even about really helping the child. It's about them getting more money. And once they start getting that money, they don't want to let it go. So be careful how you fill those forms out. I had to leave the system in order to get that sorted out because I couldn't do it. In order for me to fix it in California, I would have had to pull my daughter out and put her into a private system. And then I would have had to make sure that all the paperwork, including the paperwork that they sent home, for mom, because it was a split household, I would have had to make sure that, yeah, mom, don't check these boxes. It's only English. That's all you need to check. And it's crazy. And if you don't know these things, you're stuck.
Let me ask you something. You were talking about accountability. I don't know if you're aware of this, but when I had to go get my master's, I heard in one of the lectures from the professor that the first 7 years of a child's life are the most important as far as just developing how you want this child to be, as far as social and all that good stuff. So I always wonder, I only get a chance to ask this with a few parents that I know, because I know they're kind of chill. They won't get bent out of shape. This is nobody here is my student's parent. I'm wondering, who does everybody think is accountable? To teach their child accountability. Prior to school, it really, we can reinforce what they already know, but we can't make kids do anything. At a school, we cannot make, even if there's consequences like detention and, expulsion and all that. And I always, you can ask almost any teacher and they'll tell you, hey, show me the parent and I'll tell you what that child is like.
Absolutely. And it ends with the home. That's the one of the things that burn me up, when we talk about education. All these parents run out here and they want to blame the teachers. They want to blame the school system. They want to blame the government. They want to blame everyone but themselves. And that's where it begins and ends. And like you said, show me the parent. I can show you. I could tell you what kind of child that is. I agree with you 100%. 100%. Mr. K. Lady is asking.
Outliers. Of course, there are outliers.
Of course.
Don't get me wrong. And just like not every teacher is great. We know that as well. But for the most part, like that part of, hey man, if you weren't around to teach a child when they were an infant to 6, 7 years old before they got to kindergarten, and man, no disrespect, they get to you in the classroom and no one has been controlling. And as you mentioned before, they just keep getting pushed along. Now they think in 8th grade, like today's episode, have a young boy tell me, you're annoying me right now. And you said you were a bad kid. You tell me you ever spoke to a teacher like that.
Never.
Even you might have thought it.
Never. I thought it all the time. You never would say that. I could think of maybe one time we would talk reckless to a teacher, and that was always a sub. That was always a substitute teacher. And of the substitute teachers, those were the weak ones. The only time we would talk reckless, and that was in high school. So no, that never happened. We didn't talk to grown-ups like that. You getting hit in the head. If that gets back to your parents, what did you say? But now, that's not a thing. Parents are running up here, bulldozing everything out of the way. These kids have no respect. No respect. Miss AKA is saying I have a 5th grader going into 6th grade next year. Any math tips for a soon-to-be middle schooler? And then she probably missed the first part when you were like at least 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week during the summer. But are there any other tips?
That is I'm going to assume that she's not doing anything I said, so don't get offended if I say something. That is the number one thing. My next door neighbor, when her child was a little boy, I used to see them on the porch, and she had that boy 5 days a week. The heck with 3.
Wow.
30 minutes of math, and he had to read at least, like 15 minutes a day. And at the end of the week, he wrote a report on that, whatever it was. And wow. it seems like a lot. And then now during the school year, I know we're all tired. If you can understand your child's math, hey, just look, the tip is to stay on that child. I know after they get old, you want to loosen that leash or let out that leash. And I'm not going to check the work that much anymore. No. Stay on top. 5th into 6th grade, that's going to be a scare. I don't know what your child is made of, but it's a huge transition because I have to assume even where you're at in 5th grade, they almost have the same teacher for almost all their subjects. Once they get to middle school, I would have to assume even in Florida, they start to go to different classes. They're going to be around eighth graders who look like giants to them. you know,
Yep.
that social awareness is also important. Have your child be around all types of kids. But as far as just a school thing, you can't let a child at that young of an age have breaks, especially when you have that 2-month break off. I'm not saying to have them all day, but I mean in the morning or when you get home from work in the summer, I don't know. In my opinion, you cannot like take any break at that young age. Hey, imagine when we were in college. I know a lot of, including myself, I didn't take the summers off in college. I would at least take one course. I just knew the kind of person was that if I took those 2 months off, I go back in the fall. It was like, oh man, what the heck? You lose that drive. And I'm an adult in college. You imagine a young kid.
Right, absolutely gonna lose that drive, and I gotta admit, like, my daughter has academic struggles, and we went through the whole process, and we went, to the people with a lot of letters behind their name and all that. We took all the tests, and it was, I didn't like what they told me, but I pushed through it with my support mechanism with my people, and we pushed through, and my daughter she's doing amazing now. We're out here with a new system. She's taken to this system like a fish to water. We're doing amazing. So I didn't want to push her too much because she went through so much. But you know what? I still got to get back. I got to get back to the workbooks. Let's get the workbooks out. You know what I mean? Let's work on a little bit of math. I'm going to take your advice there too. I'm going to have her read, maybe not every day. Maybe I'll start with just once a week. I'll have her read. We'll sit down and we'll read some stuff. We'll watch some educational programming on TV. You know what I mean? And just to make it, it's more than just school. Like, it has to come from your parents. You know what I mean? But like you said, you want to be careful. You don't want to overdo it.
And what's important, especially with reading, because not a lot of people love reading. Find out what your kid likes, like those hobby kind of things, and find books and even if it's a magazine about, I don't know, let's just say your kid likes music and they get into R&B. Then I don't know what's out anymore. Let's say back in the days, the Source magazine. Hey man, buy them that. Maybe once in a while, find a good article on the music, or maybe they're into video games. So you know what? Buy them one of those video game magazines that talks about the up and coming games. And guess what? When they finish reading that article, you let them know ahead of time, like, hey, I just want you to give me like a 3-sentence summary of what you read. And don't be strict about it. That's the other thing. You can be stern without being strict, because kids get turned off, like you said. They just get turned off. It is what it is. I was into comic books when I was a young kid, and that was how my love for reading developed. I know comic books may not be a huge thing anymore, but hey, if your child is into Marvel Universe on TV or the movies, hey, maybe you can get the graphic novels now where they have like about 10 comic books in there. And you don't have to have them read the whole thing at a time. And a lot of kids are visual. So they're reading the little box with the words, whatever. There's not a lot of reading, but with the visuals, I know my mind used to feel like I was Magneto. I was Professor Charles Xavier or Wolverine, whoever else is in that. You know what I mean? And
my daughter's into anime, so it was great. So I can get her that anime stuff, or we'll watch an anime movie and I'll have it in the original Japanese. So she's forced to read the subtitles. And she wants to know what's going on in the movie, so she's gonna read the subtitles. Even if I gotta like slow it down, like, did you get all that? I'll hit pause so she can read it all, and then we'll, you know what I mean? So I'm with you there, and that's great advice, bro. And we had
she wrote just right now about taking your kids to the library when they're a young age. My parents did that for me, and my parents are not even English speaking natural. I mean, they weren't natural English speakers, and I remember when I first landed on college and I saw a public library at a university, I thought I saw the Holy Grail. I'm sounding mad geeked out right now. I got lost in those book stacks.
That's what's up.
Oh shit, I can find anything from 18 something to right now if I was interested. Especially, that's when I finally got to see about Black history. No high school in America is going crazy about Black history.
Right. Right.
And when I was able to
yeah.
go to the book stacks and I can find anything about us from any region in the world, oh my goodness. Anyway.
Yeah, gotta know your history, man. Brother Hayoka is saying, DL, remember the octave nerve comment on the AI podcast I did an episode about artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
It was like, and the system going down, that's programming for short attention span. It's an algorithm. That's crazy how they're doing it. And you're a math guy, so you understand algorithms and all that stuff better than most. You know what I mean? It's. I'm gonna pin a question on that because I want to ask you about your version or your vision of the future. But and whenever you're ready for me to pull up the charts and all that, when you're ready to talk about it, you just let me know. But
Yes.
Should we teach kids about credit and how important it is?
For sure. I think in my district, ever since I've been there, because you have to take 3 years of math, but you only have to pass algebra as far as state mandate to graduate. After you take that, they have a course like business mathematics, and they teach them all that. I mean, I know we don't have checkbooks like we used to have back in the days, balancing your checkbook,
Right,
but
balancing
we
your
do
checkbook,
teach
yeah.
them about balancing your actual funds. They show them how to write a check, and hey, you can't write more. And a lot of you'd be surprised. You would think that's common sense, but not to a teenager.
Right.
Teaching them interest, because we have those Texas Instrument graphing calculators that you can do. Hey, you want to buy a house for $400,000 at whatever percentage rate, and then you put in compounded monthly, like all our mortgages basically are, and you see what you really actually are going to pay on the house after X number of years, and you see kids' eyes light up. When I taught business math, I had kids to say, hey, pick a job you want to do. I just did a small project for over 3 days. Kids were coming up with, and I said, nothing entertainment and nothing athletic, because that's an outlier.
Right.
You can be a doctor and making 400,000. Fine, pick that. And then now pick where you want to live, pick the kind of car you want to drive. And they were so shocked. Even the kid who picked a salary that was, I think it was like 400 something, a gastroenterologist or something like that. And when he picked all the stuff he picked, and he realized all the stuff he picked surpasses income, he was like, oh shit. And I said, exactly. Even people who make good money, you have to be wise with your funds.
Yes.
Super wise. And
paycheck
so,
to paycheck.
So that made me, when I had to now go back to teaching algebra with those kids the next year or the year after, they were like, oh, snap. They're now grasped. You know, I always tell my students, you don't know what you don't know. You don't even know what you're going to like. I said, I'll give you my example. When I was in school, all this internet stuff and graphic design, that didn't exist yet.
Right.
So you imagine that child who decided to in my high school to major in graphic design. We used to laugh at them like, man, you must be a dummy. That person right now is smiling like a fool, man.
Paid on the French Riviera. On the French, you know what I mean? Brother Hayoka was saying, how about 15,000 comics my mother threw them out when I was young? That had to hurt. Probably worth some money too. Probably worth some money. Mom probably threw away $1 million comic book, didn't even know it.
They sent me on vacation with my sister, my mom and dad. They left us with my grandmother. And my mom did that summer cleaning. Of course, you know, as a kid, you know where you keep your stuff. As soon as I got home, I went to look and I was like, where the hell? My baseball card collection too. So I feel you, brother.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so Brother Roz know what that is. Not the baseball collection. No. So so let me ask you this, like with the school system, why are there so many tests, bro?
You know, and that's going to lead to that chart. This is a great segue.
All right.
Well, I mean, the standard tests and I mean, how else do you show proficiency? I don't know the answer to how else do you show.
But I get that, but so many tests.
Oh, so many. Like, you mean within like the school year with your like say like me, for example?
No, not those tests. The state tests, like the test that down here in Florida, there's a series of tests that the whole school system dedicates almost a third of the quarter to prepping for all these kids. They take these tests And I mean, I guess these tests are linked to funds, I guess,
That I was
or
going to tell you, a lot of it, some of it has to do with the funding. If your school is not performing well, I can speak about New York. They have schools to watch. There's like a award a school would get based on test scores. Now you get that, guess what? You might get a little bit extra money from the feds as well as your state. And guess what else also happens? I remember in one high school I taught in the Bronx. So you have homeroom. In most schools, homeroom is that first period. But this school is a very low performing, high truant school. So what would happen? They didn't have homeroom first period. They would have a third period. I don't know the exact number, but for you to get certain type of state funding, your attendance rate had to be something in the 80%. So now you imagine if you did it first period, right? And you got a lot of kids who either come late, the percentages are going to be way lower than in third period. And they used to always drive us, hey, make sure your kids come to third period. And I remember I said, why third period? And when they told me that, I said, oh, wow.
yeah.
And guess what? Those kids will leave.
Yes, right after.
And I'm telling you, by 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, my classrooms would be almost empty. It was sad. It was very sad because they looked like me. And that's one thing, even at my ripe age, at a mature age of 52, not too much things make me cry, but seeing our people put ourselves through some of the shit that we can control, it still feels like a dagger, man.
It is a dagger, and that's on us too as a community, man, because we do not place any value, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. We don't place any value on true knowledge in our community. All the value is placed on the athletics. It's placed on the hustlers. You know what I mean? It's funny you mentioned that about homeroom. In my high school, homeroom was second period. You know what I mean? And it was a little bit of that. And you would see people show up for homeroom and then bounce. But we never, I mean, if you were a smart, bright kid, you know what I mean? You better be nice with your hands because it's coming. You as that smart kid, you would try to dumb yourself down. You know what I mean? Because you just get tired of fighting. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. I almost forgot. Brother Jason's in the house, man. I almost forgot, bro. Welcome. I believe financial credit literacy should be taught as early as elementary. I mean, I think it should be taught as early as kids can understand it. Like you said about interest and how that affects you. If kids understood interest, how many of those kids would take these loans once they got to college, when they got to that final level? I mean, how many more kids are like, you know what? Let me get to school for the least amount of money possible because I'm not trying to pay that interest rate over X amount of years. You know, and worse, just gain all of that, you know, all that interest accrue, even while the loans are kind of like hiatus or whatever, where you're not paying, but you're still paying that interest and it's getting added on to the loan. So many people of color, our people, they borrow money when they were kids, and here they are 15, 20 years later, and they owe more than they borrowed. But, you know, it looks like Joe Biden is trying to help that a little bit. So
I want to add on to what about the test scores in New York. Those state exams that you were referring to, they push it hard too. You know why? That's how we get rated.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
And that's for y'all pay.
No, not for our pay. Just are you gonna? All right. So let's say you're tenured already, like me, and it's just like college grading: 1, 2, 3, 4. And anybody who hasn't gone to college, I think I'm assuming. I'm gonna just run it down. A 4, of course, is great. 3 is called effective. 2, if you get 2, now they'll give you 2 years and they'll work with you. And now you got to do everything they say. Because let's say your administrator say, hey, you know, we're going to bring in some help and we're going to pair you up with so and so. And hopefully your students' test scores go up. And if they don't and you remain at 2, then you can get fired, even as a tenured teacher.
Oh, wow.
So in New York State, those state exams are used as well, partially, not all of it. Like there's a certain percentage to see how we're doing. And your observations also have something to do with how you're scored. We get observed twice a year. So you can imagine the dog and pony show that goes on, like that crappy or less than average teacher. Man, you go into that classroom that day, you're like, and you know, I know my colleagues. We know who are the teachers. You know, maybe
Yes.
our delivery isn't the greatest in the world, but when people come to observe me, I act the same way. I'm a goofy teacher, man.
Yeah,
You
but you get
know,
the
if
results.
it's my if I have the math chairman comes in because I know him more than all the other administrators, I get him involved. I'm like, hey, this dude back here, he says he can do better than all of you right now, and he hasn't been in school since King Tut. I say something stupid like that, and the kids are like, what? And you see them getting riled up, and he likes that kind of stuff. And even if I have an administrator that I never heard of or seen before who comes in, I don't get nervous. I used to be a nervous kid, and I don't know how that erased from me, but I'm thankful that it did. I act like myself. The way I look at it, I'm not going to do a dog and pony. We have 180 something mandated school days. And even if I had a bad day, I say to myself, and you have to meet with them afterwards. Hey, man, you came to see me 1 out of 180 something days. I'm not stressing you. And I
Yeah.
say it professionally. I'm just talking loosely with you now.
Right. And I get that because you're confident now. You're proficient. You don't need to be dog and pony. Those people who are rating down in the twos, they have to. And what I was going to say to that is, well, at least there is something on the books that, in theory, will keep
Correct.
Teachers pushing forward. But we always know there's always ways around that sort of thing. We both know that.
Exactly.
So you were talking about this chart.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna bring it up on my end too, so I can explain.
So
there
it is.
You have
right
a way
there.
to like? Oh, cool. I'm gonna put on my old man reading glasses then.
All right,
everyone.
bro.
Everyone, we all know to pass a class we need a 65. So this. Oh, it doesn't matter if it was actually algebra 1, but it's no different. All right, I want you to take a look. The raw score, there's 86 points on that test. Obviously, you get 86 out of 86, it's 100. Now, I want you to scroll to where we can find raw score at 65.
So here it is right here. Raw score is 65.
I'm sorry. Go to the right column. Right, the scale score 65. I'm sorry.
Scale score.
All right, that's what you need to pass percentage-wise, right? Now, remember, there's 86 points. Yeah, the top right one. Yes.
Yeah, right over here.
All right. There's 86. All right, so you only need 28 points out of the 86. All right. I can't do math that well in my head anymore. I'm gonna take out my handy dandy calculator. Remember, 65% is passed. We all know that, right?
Right.
And anybody who's proficient in math, you already know that's not even 50% of the points. So 28 divided by 86, 32% to pass that test. All you need is 32% of the points to pass that test.
That's wrong, bro. Right off rip, that's wrong. That's not passing.
It isn't. And let me tell everybody else, there are 24 multiple choice questions. They're 2 points each. You don't need to be a mathematician to realize. And I said that on purpose. I say mathematician.
So you're not sitting there showing your work. We had to always show our work.
Right. And then there's like a part 1 is 24 multiple choice. Part 2, there are 6 short response. Part 3, a little bit more elaborate. And part 4 is like that big 6-point short. You have to be really, it's probably like one of the toughest questions on the test. So my point I'm saying is, 48 points are multiple choice. The rest are, you have to show your work. What I'm getting at, why I'm saying that is 48 points will get you. Now go to where the raw, you got a 40. All right, it's right here. If you get just those 24 questions right, you have a 78.
Wow.
But if you look at the percentage, 48 divided by 86 is not even 48 divided by 86. You only really scored a 55%.
Bro, this is what we're doing.
So now to add on, I looked up New York State, the algebra regions in 2018. In 2018, the whole state, 44% passed in 2018. In 2019, 46% passed. The other 2 years after that, everybody knows it's pandemic. They didn't do that test. So now you're telling me, look, even with that low score, that all you had to do was get 32% of the points, only 44% of the students in New York State passed that shit, man.
And
So
I'm assuming there are a lot of teachers who are teaching that strategy. Well, if you just ace this part right here, you good.
You should. You should. Like, I have honor level kids. I'm not worried about that. Those kids want to get 85 and above because in New York State, 85 and above is considered mastery. So if you go to the left column and scroll to the scale score of 85.
Scale score 85 down here. So where we at? There we go. 66.
Look at you know how in school 1, 2, 3, 4, as far as proficiency. So in order for you to be considered proficient, you have to have a 3. So 85 is considered a 5. That's mastery. 4 is good. Like, yay, that's like, way proficient. And so are 3s. But when you look at that middle column, the percentage of points is under the 65.
This needs to stop, bro. This is just wrong.
Well, New York State wants to look like, hey, whatever that the governor and the state education department are telling us how we're supposed to teach these topics, and all the questions weighted. I'm looking at her question while I was thinking.
Yeah, that's Miss AKA lady. She was wondering all the questions weighted. Sister Jenny's in the house. What's good, love?
No. The questions, the weight is right here, how they scale it. What we would call back in our days, that's the curve.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I'm looking at this. I mean, this is a curve. For us, it was like to get 100, you had to get 100. That was point blank.
When I took the Regents when I was in school, if you wanted to pass, you had to score a 65. The test was worth 100 points.
Yes.
And you had to get a 65.
Yes.
Not like a curve, an actual 65. And so now if you have like a 98, oh man, you were the man or the woman.
That's mastery.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And it's not that we're beating up on New York, because every state is doing a variant of this. I'll bet $1 to a donut right now. I bet you every state has a variant. I don't think there's a state in the union that's going 100 for 100.
They won't.
You know what I mean?
Because the federal education department, I don't know if you remember this is at least 10 years ago, they had that Common Core.
Yes. I was like,
yes. And the Common Core was almost based off of New York's standards, because they consider our standards one of the highest in the country. You all have question marks now after you're seeing this chart. How in the world is that a high standard?
Man, for
and
real.
Guess what? For those of you who are into the English, guess what? The ELA, you need to pass that test in high school to graduate too. In 2018, only 45% passed. In 2019, 45.4 passed.
I mean, and we're talking about a system where 86 is equivalent to 100. 86 is mastery.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane, bro. And these kids can't pass.
Well, then now you imagine this. And I watched a documentary. I think Oprah produced it. This is years ago. I can't remember. And they had kids who were valedictorian in like middle America. She picked different students, and they went to college. Remember, valedictorian, you're number one in your school. And they were overwhelmed. They weren't doing too great because they don't prep you for college, man. They prep you, unfortunately, and whatever. This is my opinion. I'm not saying this is what my district does. They're prepping you to just pass tests.
And I was going to bring that up. I was definitely going to bring that up.
They try to say, hey, man, well, incorporate writing in mathematics. Okay, that's not a big deal for me. That's easy. I don't have a problem doing that, But most students just memorize how to do things.
And when you teach kids to basically learn this stuff and dump it, because that's what they're doing.
A lot of
now they don't know how to learn. This is crazy.
I gave you an example. I got this off a science teacher. I have my students when they come into class, and I can't force them to do it, but I said this is highly suggested. I have them form their notebook. You remember how a textbook has a table of contents? So yes. I have them on the first page. Hey, let's say today it was September 15th. Write down the topic, and then in your notebook, say it's on page number whatever. So like the first 5 pages, I have them develop a table of contents. And since everything now is in Google Classroom, you don't have to waste time writing notes. Just say, hey, on page 6 of today's Google Classroom are the definitions or the steps for solving XYZ topic that I'm doing, because they don't know how to take notes. And this is at my age group. We're not talking about first, second graders. And it's scary, man.
So they don't know how to learn. They don't know how to study, but they're being told that they have mastery of these topics. Like, you are a master at this.
Correct.
You're a proficient. This is crazy. Brother Vikings in the house, man. We're talking about our educational system. Welcome, brother. Welcome for coming through. Brother Heyoka is saying the educational system was designed for the Industrial Revolution, not to make you intelligent. I get that, but however, I wasn't around back then. I learned. I can. Mm-hmm. All right, this is something I want you to watch, bro. before I finish the statement, it's something I want you to see. It's like, because this is insane. This is insane. So, have you? This is from YouTube. This young man right here goes around. Okay, so let's check this out real quick. And you can give me your take on this.
Stars there are on the U.S. flag?
52.
Yes. What state is Utah in?
Michigan.
Yes. You know what state Utah is?
All right. First 2 questions, man. First of all, could you hear it?
Yes.
You can hear it. First 2 questions off the rip. Are these, in your opinion, would you say that these are trick questions? Is this difficult? Is this?
Oh.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
And you know, I'm a sidebar, but then they want to get mad, and I don't mean to touch your toes, man. I know you were in the military, but they want to get mad because a joker decided to kneel during the national anthem. But jokers don't know that there's 50 stars. Jokers don't know that Utah is a state itself. You don't know about your own country, and you want to be rah rah rah. And right. I don't mean a sidebar, but going back to this, that's sad, man. That's sad.
And here's the thing with that, as a guy who's been deployed, as a guy who fought for his country, as a guy who's a paratrooper and all that kind of stuff, I put my life on the line for your right to kneel. I put my life on the line for your right to burn the American flag. If that's what you choose to do as an American, it's your right. So I'm not going to sit here and take away anyone's right, because that's how serious I take it. And that's what people get wrong. When they come to someone like me, or they come to someone who served, especially those of us who've been deployed, especially those of us who like tip of the spear type guys. You know what I mean? When they come to us, they are so confused because they believe they're doing us a favor. It's like, nah, man. And I look at these people like, you don't deserve the rights that you're trying to give away or take away. I get mad at folks. I'm like, you need to come out here and earn your freedom of speech. You know what I mean? Why don't you go with them young boys on some mission in the Middle East or in Europe or in Central or South America and see what it takes to keep America free, to keep your freedoms. And maybe you won't be so quick to want to give them away. If we want to talk about a sidebar, that's my thought on that shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? We fought for these rights. And that is the whole kneeling thing. The suggestion came from a Navy SEAL. When Kaepernick talked to me. So it's one of those things. And what was he kneeling for? Police brutality. We need to do something about law enforcement. What are we talking about now? Right? Defund the FBI. What are we seeing now? Law enforcement officers out here, the bad ones, murdering people. Right? That's what Kaepernick was trying to bring attention to. That just makes me so mad. I get on like these hardcore left and right people. They're the same to me. Like none of y'all served. None of y'all served.
Let me tell you something. So you're talking about this gentleman on this YouTube. My social studies, a social studies teacher I consider him a friend at my job. The first test he gives, He gives them the map of the United States. He writes down for them, because unfortunately, kids at 8th grade don't know each state's name and its location. And he tells them your first test. And the way he does it is he'll list the states out on the left column. He'll put like A, B, C, or 1 through 50, and you just have to fill it in. And he says he has never got 100. And
he never got 100.
He hasn't got 100. And we've been together now 5-6 years, working together. And he's like, he gets upset. He's like, that's the easy 100 that you can get.
Nothing. It seems like nothing's easy anymore. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Sister Pax in the house. What's good? She's like, we want real men, not transformers in the classroom. That's another conversation. I don't know if we're gonna delve into that, but I hear you. I hear you.
And you know how, unfortunately, a lot of single families, the mothers are taking care of the children alone, and you know the effect that has on a boy and a girl. I don't even like to just say boy and a girl. I think in the school industry, when it's just women, and I can speak, this is my experience, a lot of the boys and girls disrespect women teachers hard.
Why is that? Is it?
You know what? I'm not a woman. I don't know what the freak is going on. I have no idea. But when the men teachers, I don't know. Maybe it's because we're big, like in stature. I have no idea, man. I don't know.
So what about a weak male teacher? Would he get the same treatment as a regular female teacher, or is it simply because he's a man they kind of give him a little more?
My man, and let me preface this: we have some strong women teachers who are not taking that shit, and they don't go through this. I'm just saying, for example, it's how we were speaking earlier. You have to set the precedent from day one, and a lot of teachers don't want to get involved with discipline. And these kids feed off on that. And the minute you say, hey, why are you late to class? And you got these girls and boys who the stuff that comes out of the mouth, and I'm in the suburbs. That's why I'm trying to tell you, it's not just city kids and black kids and Spanish kids or whatever the case you want to say. It's all of them. The entitlement that happens even in the suburbs is, I don't know if it's bad or as worse, it's still not respectful. And I notice a lot of women teachers, unfortunately, get treated way different. A case in point, last year in the cafeteria, these boys were just acting super wild. And I saw from afar, the woman teacher, she teaches basically like home economics compared to when we were in school. They call it consumer science now. And I saw her like trying to talk to the boy. And the boy, you can tell he was being very raucous at the lady. And I walked over there. And not until I walked over there did he calm down. And I said, wait a minute. What I want to know is, I was watching from far away and you're yelling back at her. Like, I'm talking about, you know how like you about to raise up on somebody?
Like that.
Said, yeah. And I said, you can't do that to anybody here. I said, I don't understand. Why aren't you doing that to me? I can't touch you, just like she can't touch you.
But indeed you can if you wanted to. If it got to that, there's always that underlying
repercussions. I'm saying,
but in his mind, he's like, you know what? In the back of his mind, he's thinking, this man might snatch me up. Just being 100, like I might catch him on the wrong day, because there is that underlying threat of violence whenever you deal with men. Brother Kevin Samuels used to say that all the time. You know what I mean? Rest in peace to Kevin Samuels. But that is the truth. When we have never met in person. But if we sat down in person, I'm going to act a certain way and you're going to act a certain way, because there's always that underlying threat that, you know what, this brother might snatch me up if I get out of pocket. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That could be something about that. And Brother Hayoka was saying, DL, Learn How to Learn. This is a book that he's recommending by Indresh Shah. Is a great book. This brother is so sharp. He's always dropping them gems. And Miss AKA is like, yes, give us a list. She like, go ahead and drop the whole book list. LOL, I'm writing them down. So I appreciate you giving all this value, brother. But let's listen to a couple more of our shining examples of America's future and how they answer these questions. And this is in New York, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It is. Yeah, it looks like it to me.
Cousin.
Utah, to be honest with you, I never heard of that place ever in my life. I live under a rock.
Can you name 3 countries besides the USA?
I suck at history. That was like my worst subject.
Bro, she said she sucks at history. She sucks at history.
And if you're in the USA, there's 2 countries that you can name right off the back. The one above and the one below.
And one below. You would think. You would think. I mean, bro, seriously. This is what happens when you tell someone that scored at 80, what was it, 84, 85, whatever it was, that you have mastered the educational system. And they know absolutely nothing. I have a map. It's like a rug. It's like a cloth map on the wall outside my daughter's door. And every time she comes out, where's California? It's a map of the world. Where's Spain? Where's Mexico? You know what I mean? That's my responsibility as a parent. Bro, so is this taught? Is this part of the test? I mean, or do they talk about countries? I mean, I don't this part I don't get.
In New York, you learn world history by the time easily you're, I think, in your second year of high school. For sure. And they even touch up on a little bit in middle school. I mean, they don't go in depth, but they at least speak about, hey, some countries in Africa, Europe, like, you know what I mean? It's there. It's the interest level. I'm not in the minds of everybody. I don't understand how this is actually. I sometimes wonder if these are just jokes.
I'm looking at this. I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, how many people did they have to go through to get to her that didn't know these things? That's my question. I might have to reach out to
the extreme ones,
Well, there's so many of them. Let's watch just a few more and then we'll stop. Let's watch a few more of these.
Do you like science?
No. Any three, you know this.
A country? Oh my jeez, this is terrible. Oh my god. A country. Wait, besides the U.S.?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't.
All right, it's fine.
I can't do history. I can't.
Do you know how many dimes there are in the dollar? Make up $1.
A dime is the 10 cent or the 5 cent?
All right, bro. I can't watch no more. I can't watch anymore.
And yes, I want to tell Miss AK, she is right. Like, even in New York in the state exams, if you look at that scale, if you have an 85, there's not much of a curve. So 85 and above is considered in algebra mastery. And yes, once you get to about that 90 and 95, you're talking about, top whatever 5%. And so mastery isn't like just passing. Getting a 3 is considered proficient. So that's maybe the kid who can like rote memory and do stuff. But that kid who gets 85 to 90 can explain the steps and explain the terminology. You get what I mean? And those are far and few. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let me ask you this, bro. As a professional, as a competitor, right? As a prideful man, again, we've never met in person, but I can tell you have these qualities. How is it that our educational system is accepted across the board? Like, even as a former air traffic controller, I know where the system used to be and where the system is today. I know this. So where the educational system used to be and where it is today. Why? And I know you're not the only one. So why is it that we do nothing about this, bro?
Everything that you probably had a show about in the past. You're dealing with politics. You're dealing with money. Hey, man, red, blue state. Hey, when Trump was in office, that's the best explanation to your answer. I'm not saying Trump himself. I'm saying the divisiveness that is going on in this country. And unfortunately, our babies are going to suffer, man, because we're I don't blame our kids, man. Our kids are consequences from adults. It's us, man. I don't have children, but I put myself in that boat, unfortunately, because I am an adult in this in this U.S. community, a New York community, or whatever you want to call it. And
but
try my best. I don't think you're gonna find a concrete answer. There's so many different parameters, and maybe some of your, guys and gals who are on this chat can chat in there and drop some hints, because, dude, I don't know. I live my motto as a teacher, as an actual professional teacher, how the brothers who I knew back in the days, and the 5%ers, where they used to say, hey man, each one, teach one. If you can get one, that's all that.
And right there, bro, that's what I'm talking about right there. New York. Okay, I'm gonna fall back into my hood bubble, because that's where it all started for me, right? I'm gonna fall back into my hood bubble. And the one thing that we respected, well, me, I'm not gonna speak for everybody who was in the streets with me, but the one thing I respected most about the New Yorkers, even the gangsters, they had knowledge of self.
Yep.
I mean, brothers out in New York was telling me about the Amistad long before the movie came out. You know what I mean? Sisters from New York was telling me about, the New World Order. They were teaching me how to think on a higher level. I mean, look at just Rakim alone. Just had me thinking a certain way. So New York being a place where even the gangsters are thinkers, what the hell's going on with the system? You feel you see what I'm trying to get to?
They're not catering. This is my opinion. They're not catering to, look, how I started off when it was just me and you on the first 5 minutes. Hey man, if somebody doesn't look like you and is standing in front of you trying to give you information, and a lot of the information, especially in the school system, come on, when we were in school, how long did it take them to finally realize, no, Christopher Columbus did not discover America? Even me as a young kid, it was like, and I didn't even have the books that I have now. I was like, wait a minute. If they landed there and they said there were native people there, why are they using the word discover? Of course, you're not going to question that, the kid. Like you said, the paddle will come out. I saw the paddle get hit on one kid. I was.
Yeah, I was a kid getting hit because I was a knucklehead.
You imagine like those five, like, a lot of those 5% brothers, they study hard. And a lot of people think that they're gangsters. No, they might have been gangsters and they still have that in them. If anybody knows much about it, their credence, their teachings come from Islam.
Yes.
And they actually do try to study, and not all of them, because even within that small percent of people, there's some who, if you get a chance to build, like I've had the chance to build with, I'm highly involved with 5% Nation of Gods and Earth. And I've met people who've gone to be doctors who are still living that life, living that culture, because your job as a righteous man is to be that. It's a struggle. Don't get me wrong. We are human. We sometimes relapse, but when you build with guys like that, imagine now I'm looking back like, wow, I didn't realize how that was shaping me up to who I am right now. I tell my students, because they don't know these rap groups, I'm like, hey, I'm a poor righteous teacher.
They don't
I even wear the t-shirt to work. I wear that t-shirt to work. We don't have like massive dress code. I wear t-shirts to enlighten my students, even though most of them are white. And they'll say, hey, what does that mean? Hey, man, with that smart board and being able to show them on YouTube. And of course, I know if the song has, curses or not, I screen it. Hey, man, and they start reading and they're like, the lyrics, they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, man, that was the kind of stuff I grew up to.
So it boils down to leadership. It boils down to where we started at the beginning of this show. Why it's so important to have you and men like you from all communities, from all backgrounds, in the school system at every level. I mean, it sounds to me that might be the start to the beginning of the answer to this problem. And the second thing would be do away with this. We need to get back to 100% is 100%. Can we start a hashtag or something? 100% mastery is mastery. 85% is not mastery. It's just not. Nowhere in the history of man has 85% been mastery. But we're doing that, and we tell these kids, we send them out into the world, and then somebody walks up, puts a camera in their face, and asks them how many states. Forget that. Name 3 countries, and they can't do it. You know what I mean? That is a failure of our society. We all own that to an extent. Miss AKA lady is saying, we started falling behind when technology took over. We should be producing the top STEM professionals, but instead we produce the most social media influencers. But it starts in the home. Miss Globe Girl's in the house. Welcome, my favorite sailor.
And
brother,
you're right, DL, because
go
even in that scale, if you got an 85, that was only 66 out of the 86 points. If you do that conversion percentage wise, that's only 76%. In my college, that was a C. And
boy,
any college, that's a C.
That's a C. Barely. I mean,
a 2.0. And that's supposed to be mastery. Yeah, I just work there, man. I don't set those numbers.
Right, you just telling us. You just telling us. And it just blows my mind, bro. You can't to be airborne. To be airborne, we're not gonna. It's not scored on a scale, right? That job, right? You're asking to be dropped behind enemy lines, right? That's one of the things we say all the time, man. Like people like, you don't want to go over there, you'll be surrounded, man. I'm airborne. I'm supposed to be surrounded. That's the mentality. We are all the alpha mentality. We want to be there. We want it. We are the best. We're telling these kids they're the best, and we send them out into the world, and they have to compete with India, Pakistan, Japan, China, right? Most of Europe, not most, all of Europe. I mean, you wouldn't happen to know where we rate on a world scale in education. I know we're down in like the high double digits.
Yeah, it was for developed nations. We're not even nowhere in the. If you had the podium for the Olympics, we're not on that podium.
Oh yeah, nah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
It was like in the 20 or something. It was unbelievable.
I want to say it was like 30s or 40s somewhere in there.
It was unbelievably low, unfortunately. Hey, come on! In this country, one day I was bored, and when I first got into teaching, and I just did a Google search, and I said, "Hey, percentage of Americans with a college undergraduate degree over the age of 25." The reason why I picked 25, hey, sometimes it might take you longer. And the number at that time was somewhere between like 30 to 35%. And it reminded me, and I think anybody who's been to college here and you did the orientation like I did, and they say, hey, look left, look right. Only one of you going to graduate. And back then, I didn't know why they said it. Hey, guess what? 1 out of 3 is that 33%.
33%.
That number has not boosted so high. There's like smaller demographics. They say women are graduating at a higher rate than before, but the overall percentage is still in that 30 something.
Wow. And I want to ask you this. Are kids allowed to think? And what I mean by that, is there any critical thinking going on in the system?
In my school, I remember one time they did away with the program, which angered a lot of the English teachers. They used to do these, I'm not an English teacher, but they did a lot of fabulous work, man, that had the students. You remember those cartoon editorials? And they still have them now. And they had kids like, hey, write a whatever short essay based on this. Get them out of that whole, hey, just write a paper based on the book Animal Farm. And man, what kid want, come on, man. I know those are great literary works, but we're in 2020, man, 2022. Kids don't want to just that's important, but you have to, like you said, something that they can actually relate to so that their critical analysis comes to the forefront. I remember when I had to read 1984 back in the days. I found that book boring as hell. I read it now because I'm an adult. I find it more interesting. But back then, you think I was going to understand that, hey, this is like a preamble of what is to come? I was like, whatever. I want to play my Atari 2600.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I want to play that 5200 or get on some Nintendo.
Yeah. And now I want to do whatever it is that they do now.
Man, bro, I get that. I mean, this isn't like a tough problem. Like the thing is, everyone involved knows the answers. And I think it boils back to that accountability. No one wants to be accountable. No one wants to sit. This is when we need like a military style thing to come in. We're just taking over. It's done. This is what we're doing. Throw that away. Like there was a scene in Band of Brothers. It was Band of Brothers. If you've never seen Band of Brothers, it tells the story of Easy Company, which is like the 101st Airborne Division unit and 101st Airborne Division. They jumped into Europe during D-Day, and then it just follows this unit as they fight their way to Germany, and they were in Bastogne. And if people don't know about this, like Bastogne was, they were surrounded by Germans. They were known as the Bastards of Bastogne. The 101st Airborne Division refused to surrender, and this was during a Nazi push that no one saw coming. It was called the Battle of the Bulge. And because of these guys being there, it basically broke the attack, and it delayed it long enough that the Allies could rally up and counterattack properly. And it involves General Patton. It's a lot of good stuff in there. Go look it out. But they did a series on HBO called Band of Brothers. When they were breaking out of Bastogne, they had an episode where they had this real bad commander. He was just a horrible leader. None of the guys respected him. None of the guys wanted to follow him. They're doing this. They're in this invasion, like not invasion, but this attack. They're pressing the Germans. The attack is going horrible. This guy just kind of lost it. This commander just lost it. He didn't know what to do. So they sent in the toughest commander they had in their brigade, Spears. They sent him in there, and the guy came in and right away. He's just like, forget that. You fire on that till it's gone. You go over there and do this. And then Spears ran through the battle, ran right through the German lines to connect with elements of his unit to tell them what to do. And then he ran back through the same German lines to get back to his men. And of course, they went on to win the battle. We need something like that in education, where you come in and we just put the people in charge who know what they're doing. No more of this bullshit court. No more testing. No more of this. No more of that. This is what we're going to do, right? You make it happen. You make it happen. You're fired, and we're going to get in here, and we're going to teach our children. I mean, yes, that means we've sacrificed maybe a generation and a half or whatever, but moving forward, we're going to know what we're going to do. We're going to take it back. That's what we need. Is something like that even possible, bro? Could somebody come in and actually do that?
Well, we always, of course, when teachers get together, we always say things to the nature of a lot of the suits. And I'm not talking about administrators in my school. I'm talking about Albany. That's our state capital, where the education department hails from. We always wonder how many of those were actual teachers, right? And if they were teachers, how long has it been since they've been in the classroom? Because some of the things that they promote, it's not promoting higher order thinking. It's not really, on paper it does, but for example, hey, you got to try this. So when we have superintendent conference days, no one is showing us how to implement this. No, not the way they're making it sound on paper. And then I always say, because a lot of times when they give examples, they always use like a history class, the social studies class, the English class. And us math heads are like, okay, well, how would that translate? How can we parallel this to what we're teaching? And they'll bring in these guest speakers that spend a lot of money on, and they're like, and how somebody doesn't know what they're about to say. Those and write my email down, and right there, we all look at each other like, fucking shite.
Right off rip. Brother Viking.
So what do I end up having to do? I have to teach the way I know. I feel guilty sometimes, and I'm like, how do you charge critical thinking? That's something I'm reading some of the chats. Miss AK lady said, hey man, you can introduce some higher order thinking stuff to a first grader, and you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked what you get from me. I always do like a higher order thinking question. And my low performing kids, the minute I say, I call it HOT as an acronym. And I'm like, hey, it's time for the HOT question. They get more hyped to do the HOT question than just the regular thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're all competitive.
Yep.
And that's another thing too. We got to bring back winners. No more of this. Everyone gets a trophy shit. That needs to go. We need to bring back winners. We need to make it. We need that healthy competition. We need kids to want to do the best. Brother Viking, thank you so much for this. He was like the 2022 International Education Power Rankings. The United States ranks 29th in the world. 29th in the world, right? And we have the most complex military. We have weapon systems that'll blow your mind, and we got kids that don't know shit. That's one of the things. American kids are too fat to join, and they're too dumb to join these days. They're having such a hard time finding candidates who qualify to join the United States military. You know what I mean? Look at the Navy. The Navy is offering up to $115,000 in enlistment money, bonuses and stuff like that to enlist. You know, $10,000 right off the rip if you just enlist in high school for 1 year. Your senior year, if you're enlisted in delayed entry, you get through high school, get your diploma, and you get into the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, whatever, they'll give you $10,000 right off rip. I did delayed entry. They ain't give me nothing but push-ups when I showed up. Do some push-ups. But here's what you were talking about with Miss AK. Hey, lady, I had a professor who had a school. All of his students were high performers. Most were accelerated. He said kids can learn complex ideas if you introduce them to it. They aren't as limited as we assume. I agree with that 100%. I've seen it. As an air traffic controller, we would bring kids into the tower. And right away, it took them 10 minutes to grasp the concept of air traffic control. Just looking at a radar, looking at the dots move around, looking at the targets move around. Right away, 15 minutes, they understand what's going on. Hey, what should I do with this airplane and this airplane? You need to turn that airplane to the right. Mm-hmm. They could grasp it right away. These little kids, 8, 9, 10 years old, little kids. That airplane needs to go this way. That airplane needs to go that way. I can teach you the 3D stuff. I can teach you about altitudes. I can teach you about headings, right? I can teach you that. That's easy. But the concept, they knew right away. These are kids. But then they become 20-somethings, and you can't teach them nothing about air traffic control because all they want to do is take tests. Like, man, air traffic control is you're done with the test. Now you got to separate airplanes, right? Mm-hmm. You got to think. You got to think. I think we're in trouble, brother, if we don't teach this generation how to think. Wow.
You can't. You know, at my age level already, as far as who I'm teaching, at this point, I mean, let's say everything else great. They get good enough teachers to give you the material. At this point, it's on them now. You have to find what we say intrinsic motivation. At this age now, it has to come from, I'm pointing at my chest. It has to come from you.
It comes from the heart.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you just like me, you just got to keep chopping that big redwood tree and showing that support. But man, the kid is tuned out. I can't, you know, at this age, once you get past that 5th, 6th grade, yeah, man. And honestly, all state exams start at 3rd grade for that reason. Man, after 3rd grade, if you don't have them, it's an uphill battle, man. That's
crazy.
Battle.
I didn't realize that. And then you're talking about the kid is tuned out and you have no support, i.e. from their parents. Mm-hmm. And then you have all this.
And let me throw the sad part. Unfortunately, no disrespect to my white brothers and sisters who might be on here, if they don't relate to the black kid and the Spanish-speaking kid, and a lot of them brush them off, man. I've had a lot of kids, especially the Spanish-speaking kids, once they find out I can spit their language, they confide in me, man. If you know Spanish culture, Latin culture, even though some of them don't want to, agree with skin tone, complexion, but man, that language unites us when shit ain't going good. And those kids, they'll come and tell me like, man, this, that, or third, and she's never really, she's always yelling at me because I don't understand. These are kids who are just coming from another country. Like They're trying their best and they get pushed along. And then when I get them in 8th grade, and they can't do an equation like 2x + 1 = 5. They can't do it. They don't even know what that shit means. And I asked them, I said, what you do in 6th grade? And I would never go and blast those teachers. I always just say, without them realizing, hey, who is your 6th grade math teacher? Who is your 7th grade math teacher? And then it's just like for my self-doubt. I'm like, man, you really failed this kid like this? Because they didn't know Spanish. You didn't go out of your way to, I don't know, learn a couple of math terms. And if you know, like the actual Latin math terms in English, the high level sound just like in Spanish. They sound different, but they're almost spelled the same. If I say variable in English, it's spelled the same way in Spanish.
But you know, it was crazy about all that
Anyway,
is like in this thing that we were watching when this guy walks around. One of the questions that he asked these kids, and I call them kids, but they're young adults. One of the questions was, you know, what's 3 times 3 times 3? And these people didn't know. And that goes to your point. You're getting these people that are coming up and that they don't know that. How can you? I mean, bro, you have to start all the way at the beginning.
oh, I got an answer for that one. New York State has allowed kids as young as elementary, I'm not sure the exact age, they are allowed to use calculators in math class. And you as a teacher cannot deny that. Because on the state exam, I don't know, brother. You remember how when we were in school, you would actually have lessons where you had to do the multiplication tables?
That's what I was gonna say. What happened to
they don't even use
tables?
that takes too much time, they say. Let's
It's just
get to the
committing
nook
to
and cranny. Well, brother, that's where mom and dad better get into it then.
Bro. There you go right there.
I have kids when I do negative, when they gotta like balance the equation, and one of the numbers are negative. It's like -11 plus 20. Jokers be writing 31, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's negative. And you know what? I'm at a point now when you're in 8th grade, you can't do that. Yo, just get the calculator. I'd rather you understand the concept, and on your own free time, you're gonna have to just. And when I first started teaching math, I would push the envelope. Nope, nobody's using a calculator. And then I saw the test scores terrible. And I'm like, man, I can't take an L because I'm being a hard ass.
Right, because that comes right back to you by trying to teach, and it's actually going to hurt you in your career because you're not getting the support you need. Man, that's crazy. Brother Viking, I was homeschooled, and my son is also homeschooled. My 8-year-old son is smarter and has better manners than many full-grown men I know. Man, sadly, that's the truth. That's how it works these days, bro. That's how it works these days, man. So, Brother Roz, we've been talking for 2 hours, man. It only seems like 2 minutes, and it's like it's so
I know,
much.
I looked at that, I was like, wow.
We're definitely gonna do a part 2, and you know I'm gonna bring in some more folks. This is something. What's the point of sending elected officials to Albany or to DC or to wherever? You know what I mean? You name the state capital of the state, whatever. If they're not, something like this it's an easy fix. It's just no one wants to do the work. That's what it sounds like to me. No one wants to do the work. On the red pill side of the world, when they're talking about, you know, how do men make themselves better? You have to do the work to become a better man. But we're not going to do the work to have a better educational system. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I wanted to check this out. This might not answer your question, but I wanted to bring this up before we leave. So we've been talking about public school system. Lately in New York City, New York Times, New York Post came up with this study they've been doing for about 10 years about the Hasidic run schools, the yeshivas. I don't know how you say it correctly. And they did data on 30 Hasidic boys schools, 3rd to 8th grade. And check this out. 99% of them failed the state exams. And
coming out of the private system.
And look at this, not to make, and it's not that much better. The Catholic schools, which are considered also private schools, only 55% passed. Same, 3rd to 8th grade. The Greek Orthodox was a little better, 71%. Seventh-day Adventist schools, 36%. Why is that a big deal? Why do I bring that up? I'm gonna tell you why. Those Hasidic schools, all these private schools, they get state funding too, because you're supposed to teach the New York State curriculum. So now New York State is like, wait a minute. Yo, I'm talking about billions of dollars over the last 4 years for these Hasidic schools. According to the New York Times article, man. That money, guess what? You're taking that also out of the pool for the public school systems, man.
Right. And I've heard this argument before.
Me about all these percentages and this, that, another, why kids are not doing well. You're dealing with lack of resources now, especially in a big city like New York, maybe in LA, Miami areas. It's, you know, anything with huge student population.
Bro, that's crazy. And so, but are they scored the same as public? So they're not doing 400.
It's the same state test that they have to give them. That's the only way you can compare it. So
I mean,
out of those
that
30 schools, 99%. And my buddy in California teaches in a Jewish school. And the next time you have it, the only thing is that time difference. I'm gonna see if I can get him to come on too. And that dude is like ultra super sharp.
we definitely gotta have
I
that, bro.
bow to him.
We definitely gotta have that, bro, because it sounds to me that simply confirms the fact that our educational system is gone. It's like, as they say in German, kaput.
And he
This is
teaches AP
disconcerting.
history, and these kids, he's like, they sound more like those kids from the interview that you were just showing.
I don't believe that. For real?
Yeah, he tells me stuff when he talks about, and they just have no clue about things. I told him good, and the parents are paying like 30, those high expensive schools, 30 grand, like college level prices.
All right, man, that's cool. Here's the thing. I want to give you the final thoughts, but my sis Suzette Speaks. She loves to end on high notes. So before I give you final thoughts, man, we need a high note, because she's gonna watch this and she's just gonna be like, "Deal, everything is so negative on your channel." I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm stuck in reality. What is the high note here?
Man, the high note is, man, that look. The word privilege has been used negatively towards certain groups of people in this country, but I feel privileged to be able to shape all these kids that I've had since 2005. And, New York's a big city, but sometimes you randomly bump into people. I was my 2005 freshman. I was on Union Square one day, and this young lady ran up on me and hugged me. I mean, she was in her 20s at that time, and obviously she didn't look like she was when she was 14. So I had no idea who she was. I knew she knew me because she was like, Sankofa. And I was like, who the F is this running to me? She was like, she said the name, and I have usually really good memory of my students. And the things that she told me she was doing, man, if I was in front of one of my hardcore boys, I would have probably dropped some tears. And it happens on a regular basis. I have parents who I might have taught the older sibling of a student I have now. And I just had this yesterday. And the mother said, hey, by the way, that's Amanda's brother, the boy who I'm teaching now. I was like, oh, my God. And she told him, you better listen to Sankofa, because guess what? He made me love math. He made me appreciate this stuff. And yeah, the high note is, man, I know we've been talking about the ugly side of education. Man, but for the most part, any student who has somebody who's at least pouring their heart into their subject and doing the things that are beyond the subject matter, man, I tell you, sometimes I want to leave my job, and I come out of it saying, hey, man, it's not about you no more in my life. And that's why I've stuck this long. I've had the opportunities to leave my job and make way better money. And I don't know what, something is just pulling me back. And it's not the 2 months off in the summer, brother, because that's a little bit overrated, because all my friends are working. I'm chilling by myself.
I feel that. And Brother Viking sent you one of the best compliments a man could give another man, in my opinion. If more teachers were like Brother Roz and others I've met, I'd send my son to school. Sadly, they are not. Salute, Brother Roz. And I what I mean? Salute to you, brother. And I will say this. Rebecca C. Webb. I will never forget her name.
Okay.
Latina, Puerto Rican, moved down to Cincinnati, Ohio. She was a brand new counselor. We thought she was a student. Beautiful woman. She taught me how to shake someone's hand. She taught me how to network. I have to attribute at least 70% of my success to Rebecca C. Webb. And I've been looking for her for 30 years. I've been looking for Mrs. Webb. And maybe there was some changes in her personal life. I don't know if she went back to, her maiden name, or I don't know what's going on. I'm going to find her. I think she's in Cincinnati somewhere still.
Brother, I suggest you do. I did the same thing. I had a really great school year one year. I think it was maybe 2015, 16. It was just one, how everything just aligned perfect. The students were great. It was tough at times. And I thought of my 8th grade teacher, John Smith. As generic as his name was, that was his name. I Googled, and he was teaching at a school in the Bronx, and I found him at a high school. And I went over to him. He recognized me. He was also our baseball coach, and we won the championship my 8th grade year. So, and he was the one that gave me that confidence too. I was that quiet kid in class. I tried to do my best, but I would not participate. And I remember we were reading a book. I don't remember that book, but out of nowhere, he said, "Hey, come on, why don't you answer? You're a smart kid." Bro, from that day on, even if my words mumble out incorrectly, I ain't scared to say shit.
And that's the key, man. So
and
one of the things,
and then the other thing, when he started me in center field, that's the glamour position.
it's that Eric Davis position.
Nothing anymore after that.
Right,
so,
man.
I agree with you. Like, trust me, anybody who has a child in school, they may not tell you they got touched by somebody. And I'm happy that whoever feels that I touched them, whether they tell me or not, that's what makes this great, man. On that last day of school, and they're moving up to high school or graduating from high school, and they see you at the reception, and they run up to you, you can tell that they appreciate you, man. Because you have a mob of kids waiting to take pictures with you, and you're like, "Oh shit, I thought these motherfuckers didn't like me because I was too strict, so strict."
Nah, they didn't like you. They love you, bro. That's what that is, man. So shout out to all the teachers, man. Thank you so much, bro. Thank you so much. Miss Globe Girl, I'm a product of the New York City public school system and an example of what education can do. I came across some good teachers that mentored me. They were invested. And I think you're one of those teachers, bro. So I'm just going to drop you down those were your last words. That were great. Anything else before we drop you down?
Man, dude, I don't know. I think I said enough, really. When I get on the spot, cool. That's when my mind gets blank. But the parents who are, Viking, hey, man, kudos to you. Because I have a friend who put 4 of his kids through homeschooling up until one of them up to 8th grade and the other one's to 6th grade. And you're right. Their manners and the way they are is just so social. And I'm not saying this for everybody, because the parent who does that better be super involved and know what they're doing. And then all the other parents, look, man, I don't care how tired you are. You got to be involved if you're not. And if you are involved, just a little bit more. Seriously. It's a communal thing. I have them 40 minutes a day. The rest is with you and the other teachers. After 3 o'clock or 3:30 or whatever the time is, they're yours. That reinforcement has to be like a domino effect, and I don't point fingers at parents. Once they're those are the intangibles. I try to do what I can,
And you do an outstanding
really,
job,
really
brother.
Grateful. Yeah.
Man, we are grateful to you, man. Like I said, first of all, just to have the leadership at that level, man, we got not just a man, but we got a black man, not just a black man, an honorable black man, man. Thank you again. This is for you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to drop you down. Hang out, brother. Don't go away. Just hang out for a second. I'm going to drop you down. Yo, real talk, y'all. These are the episodes that we might not get as many people, on the live. Maybe not as many people will watch the replay, but this is why I do this platform, bro. This is why I do it. These are the issues we need to sort out if we really want America to regain its prominence on the world stage. You know what I mean? If my Americans on the far right really want to make America great again, if you truly want to do that, then educate your children. My people on the left, my Americans on the left, if y'all really, really want equality, if you really, really want to make your community better, take accountability. People, these are the shows. Please share the show. This is not because I want views or just because I want subs. These are the conversations we need. My fear is we are losing America. I do not want to be a part of the generation that let the country go on our watch. It is our responsibility to teach our kids. It is our responsibility to educate our kids. It is our responsibility to hold ourselves accountable. And that's all I want to say, man. Thank y'all so much for being out here. I really appreciate everybody who was in the chat. I'm DL Saint. This is the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast. Talk to y'all later.